This video, or podcast thing, is meant as a sample extra for the crowdfunding campaign for this place on Patreon. These will be available to anyone on Patreon, whether you give $0 or $100. They're meant to be a thanks for supporting me, or any other show you like on there, and maybe just as a lure for you to frequently go over there. Samples like this one will intermittently be on here, but most of them will just be accessible through patreon.com. Thanks for your support. Let's look at a few broad views that try to answer the question, do we have free will? Unless if I've misunderstood them, the main positions don't disagree on the observations or facts. A person may be able to come to different decisions and look like they're free from outside forces controlling what they'll do, but so would a ball falling down a chute that sort of splits off into multiple chutes. Which chute the ball chooses ultimately depends on the shape of the ball, the shape of the chute, and the subtle way the ball was initially placed. We probably wouldn't say that system has free will, or that it's even choosing, but a brain seems to work a very similar way, only with way more chutes designed by DNA, and constantly changing shapes and connections with environmental stimuli. Everything that goes on in the brain and body is governed by phenomena that can be explained using physics models. It's the same atoms and molecules interacting in the same way, with the same fundamental forces. None of that seems to be controlled, it just is. Now, there's different interpretations of quantum mechanics. Maybe it's random and weird, or maybe it's chaotic and we just don't know what's going on. But at any rate, it's not like sometimes quantum objects behave like waves, sometimes they behave like particles, and sometimes they stay at home. No, it looks mostly consistent and predictable. We might say it's deterministic. It's all cause and effect. Or at the very least, it's consistent enough that it looks like it's following fundamental laws or rules. And that includes everything that goes on in our brains and bodies. So then hard determinists might say, okay, there's no such thing as free will. Free will doesn't exist. We're just squishy robots that can experience, unaware of how we work and feeling like we're making decisions. Another view, compatibilists might say, okay, we get all that, but all that stuff happening inside the skull, all that thought and deliberation, that freedom from outside forces, that is free will. It's just not the universe-breaking magic we maybe assumed it was. Saying free will doesn't exist is like saying value doesn't exist. Value is this attempt to measure what a person wants and is willing to give up or trade for other things. We measure that with dollars, pounds, yuans, yen, shekels. There's nowhere where you can go to hold a dollar. That coin in your hand isn't a dollar, it's just a lump of metal that we have assigned the value of dollar to. While maybe you can't hold a dollar in your hand, it's just a measurement, the concept is useful and measures something important. It would be dumb to just throw away the concept. Where do I stand? Am I a compatibilist or a determinist? First of all, if you're building an identity around what ideas you hold, I think you might be doing ideas bad. I don't know, surely there's not compatibilist and non-compatibilist ideas. There's only right and wrong, and preferable and non-preferable ideas. Of course, speaking in terms of feminism, determinism, left-wing, right-wing, can communicate a lot really quick, and people can be so solidified in their views that it is kind of like a war. But building an identity around ideas can close ourselves off to ideas that go against the way we think we are. And it's different than saying, I'm a homosexual, because that does seem to be the way a person is. But ideas, they need to be free to change and do battle. And it would be easier to do that when we're not treating ourselves and other people as right or wrong, but ideas as right or wrong. I think feeling right or wrong opens the way for stubbornness and bias. And it's not like there are idiots in the world who are biased and we're the smart ones. Stubbornness and logical fallacy are things we all have trouble with and all have to be actively aware of. Anyway, where do I stand? I'm not even going to answer. I think the difference between the two is a particularly unsexy one, because unless if I've misunderstood these two positions, which is quite possible, seems like the sort of thing I'd do, they don't disagree on the observations, they disagree on semantics. But surely observations are all that matter. The implications come out of the observations and out of the cause and effect and how we feel about it all, not what we're labeling free will. And both positions sort of highlight good conversations that you can have in terms of the language of either position. Like there's a conversation to be had about the utility of dollars and the utility of value as a concept. But there's also a conversation to be had about the implications of value just being a feeling in your brain. There's a conversation to be had about what we can expect from a person. We can point to a person's DNA as being the causes of who they are, but at some point, the most relevant influencer of the way they are and what they're going to do is just the current condition of their brain. That experience they have is important. There's also a conversation to be had about the implications of everything being deterministic. As I understand it, judges are more lenient after lunch than they are before lunch, because whether they are hungry or not affects their mood, and then their position on justice. If brain tumors and a person's upbringing can strongly influence the way a person is, maybe this can add a little bit of empathy to our position, and not look at them as agents to be punished and think more about solutions. wonder, what are the effects of punishment and reward on a person to achieve whatever ends we want? Are punishment and reward just incentives, or impulses of the punishers and rewarders that we should be fostering for their sake? I'm not sure what we're going to refer to as free will is all that important. As soon as you understand how all the systems work, all the cause and effect of everything going on, the implications and how we feel about it comes out of that, not out of the labels. Although, reading over the ideas I've written down here, it looks like more of a determinist viewpoint. So I guess I'm a determinist. Damn the compatibilist pig dogs. Now, another idea is that we have souls. Souls control the brain and body, or something. I don't know. It's hard to have discussions about religious or spiritual topics, because almost by definition, religious and spiritual ideas take root in unfalsifiable ideas, like gods and afterlives. These kinds of ideas, you might say, they're not even wrong. They're not even wrong because they can't even be seen as wrong. It is not that the idea, there's a chair in front of you, is unfalsifiable, and it can't be wrong, because clearly it's true. No, unfalsifiable means there's no possible way to observe that this idea is false. If this chair went away, the idea that there's a chair in front of you would be false. So the idea, there is a chair in front of you, is conceivably falsifiable. An unfalsifiable idea would be like, there's an invisible chair in front of you. Also, you can't sit on it. But it's there, always watching and judging. There's no way to ever see this idea as wrong. Absence is what it looks like. The classifications falsifiability and verifiability comes forward because of this thing that we do. We make up ideas. We hypothesize. If we've hypothesized an idea, and we're only holding it as true because it's actually impossible to see that it's false, suspect. And I mean, if absence is what it looks like, then where did the idea come from to begin with? But I think the idea of a soul deserves some stock, because that's the one it feels like. That feeling is where the idea that we have free will comes from and where the whole conversation starts. I can move my arms around however I like. Look at me go. I mean, you can't see, but it's amazing. How could anyone do something like this unless if they had free will? Consciousness is a bit mysterious, but it also goes away for like a quarter to a third of every day. And if you cut up someone's brain, you can start taking away bits of someone's consciousness. Remove or kill one spot of the brain and a person loses their ability to perceive and remember color, for example. So we kind of know where consciousness is rendered, and we know it's not magic. I released a video earlier about looking inwards to see if you are making decisions or experiencing them as they happen. I think it's a fun idea, and I've been liking your responses because, unless if I'm just a weak communicator, it seems like an idea we can't show one another. You have to see it in yourself. I can't see into your perspective and you can't see into mine. But it's kind of like saying, go look outside and look closely at leaves with a microscope. Are the leaves green? Or are they made up of little specks of blue and yellow? And let's say they were actually made up of blue and yellow. The hard determinists are going, oh yeah, I guess leaves aren't green. The compatibilists are going, guess what? We already have a word for when blue and yellow light hit your eyeball. We call that green, dumbass. It's green from all regular viewing distances, and in every way that matters. What else would you call it? And people into souls are saying, microscopes are the work of the devil. Actually, I think the metaphor breaks down for them. Thanks for listening or watching. More content coming soon. I spent the majority of the last few months learning new topics, and that's why it's been so long. Okay, bye.